This is our first official event on campus at Northeastern, so we're really, really excited to be here. I first just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction and kind of outline what the structure of this information session will look like. So we do have an hour scheduled here, but we really just want to spend maybe 20 to 25 minutes presenting to you all, and then leave the remaining time for open questions, open Q&A. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the whole presentation, but I really want to encourage everyone to hop in with questions. Don't be afraid to interrupt either of our consultants throughout, to ask questions as we go. Feel free to put questions into the chat as well, and I'm happy to kind of moderate throughout. So, the overall goal of this presentation is to educate you all on Trinity Life Sciences, what we do, and what the life of a consultant looks like here. We are actively recruiting at Northeastern for both undergraduate and graduate level full-time positions. I'll touch base kind of at the end of the presentation on official deadlines for applications, but we're overall just really excited to engage with all of you guys on campus and just overall get more involved. So just the last, I guess, housekeeping thing here is I'm going to drop a link into the chat, and it's just a short Google Forms, I guess, form that I would love for you all just to take a couple of minutes to fill out. It's just general contact information, so myself or another member of the recruiting team can follow up with you all with just a little bit more information on what we presented on today and other recruiting information as well. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Matt Bowen and Brianna Bisson. They can introduce themselves and then start the presentation.
Cool. Thanks, Riley. So my name is Matt Bowen. I am a senior consultant at Trinity. I've been at Trinity since 2018, and I am actually a Northeastern alum. So I graduated from Northeastern in 2017 from Bouvet. I was a health science major, microeconomics minor, and I also was actually part of the healthcare business club when I was a senior, which my understanding is that has since sort of merged with some other organizations to form ViTAL as we know it today. So sort of an alum here from both Northeastern and I guess ViTAL's beginning. But before we dive in to some slides, I'll let Brianna introduce herself as well.
Great, thanks Matt. My name is Brianna Bisson and I graduated from Middlebury in 2018. So I don't have any direct ties to Northeastern, but I'm so excited that we're doing kind of on-campus interview or on-campus recruiting this year and having an info session for you guys. And ViTAL sounds like a really awesome organization. You guys are lucky to be a part of it.
Great. So I will just jump in here if my slides work. So first, just some general background here on who Trinity is, where we're located, just to get a sense of the firm overall. So our headquarters are in Waltham, Massachusetts, so just outside of Boston. We have around 175 staff in that office. There's gym there, cafe, Starbucks. There is a shuttle from the Red Line to our office. So a lot of staff that work in our Waltham office live in the Cambridge area, which makes it convenient to get to the Red Line to take the shuttle into the Waltham office. Some of our other office locations, we have an office in East Norriton, Pennsylvania. It's just outside Philly, and that is home to the T-Gas Advisors division of Trinity, which is a division of our firm that specializes in life sciences benchmarking. And then we have our office in San Francisco with around 20 staff located right downtown. An office in New York City with 30 staff, again, located in Midtown East, right downtown. An office in Princeton, New Jersey, with around 25 staff, so nice convenient location between New York and Philly. And then really exciting, last year we opened our first European office. So we have an office in Munich, Germany. We have 10 staff there that a couple folks from the US actually transferred over to Munich, as well as some people from Europe starting in the Munich office. And then an office in Gurgaon, India, with 30 staff there. And that office has been growing a lot as well. And then, although kind of everyone at Trinity is remote these days, we do have 50 actual sort of full-time employees, even in a non-COVID environment. So to give you a sense of sort of where we're located and the staff that we have across these different offices. So looking a little more closely at some of the specifics. So really exciting, just this year in 2020 alone, we've had 135 new hires, which is really exciting, especially given all the challenges going on with COVID. Trinity has still recruited really strongly, brought on a lot of really new, great people over the past 9 or so months. As I just talked through, our staff sit across 7 global offices. Our leadership, so our principals and partners at the firm, are 60% homegrown, so meaning they sort of started out at the associate level and worked themselves, all the way up through to being firm leadership. So that's 60%, and the other 40% of leadership are those that have come in from other firms or other companies and have sort of furthered their career at Trinity. 25% of our staff have 5 or more years of tenure at Trinity, 40% with 3+ years. We have over 25 PhDs and over 50 master's level employees at the firm. And we also do have Trinity sponsored MBAs. And we have really strong leadership. So our chief client officer, Leslie, is awesome and leads some really strong women leadership at the firm, above industry average, and staff from 20+ countries around the world in our 7 offices. Looking here at sort of what makes up Trinity, makes Trinity Trinity. So first and foremost, the people. So everyone at Trinity, really energetic, motivated, caring, accepting of others, committed to serving our clients and supporting our internal team members and project teams. Our management and leadership teams are dedicated to working collaboratively on client projects. So across every project I've worked on at Trinity, the management and leadership teams are super accessible, always there to answer questions or to have a conversation about a challenge you're working through on a project, which is something that I've found really great about Trinity, just having that level of exposure and accessibility to the leadership that have sort of been in these roles for their entire career and are super knowledgeable about the space. And the leadership team also really works hard to maintain transparent leadership, especially as Trinity grows. I think that's something that's been really important, is making sure that leadership stays transparent with the rest of the firm. Looking at professional development, so all sorts of venues for professional development at Trinity. We have a lot of both formal and informal training, and different groups within Trinity that sort of organize various training and different programming that sort of gets you up to speed on things when you first start, and then as you continue on, to make sure that you're constantly learning new skills and improving so that you can bring new learnings to projects. We have lots of different sort of advocates for our employees. So everyone at Trinity has what we call a pod manager. And that person is sort of in charge of your staffing and in charge of sort of the typical manager type things like your annual review. And they also are an advocate for making sure that you're getting staffed on the types of projects that you're interested in learning more about. You're getting staffed with clients that you're interested in. We also have peer mentors that you're set up with when you first start to make sure that you are kind of getting exposed to Trinity culture. And if you have any questions that maybe you don't want to go to your manager to right away, you can go to your peer mentor. They're always a good resource for that. And it's just opportunities for career development. Trinity really focuses on making sure that the staff at Trinity have the building blocks to make sure that they can grow and progress at Trinity. Then in terms of project work, so Trinity is a multi-project staffing model, meaning that you'll be on more than one project at a time, which gives really great exposure to different types of projects, different therapeutic areas, all different types of clients, and really gets you learning really quickly and learning a bunch of different hard skills, soft skills. And it allows new associates after you first start to learn a lot quickly and decide whether you want to specialize in a specific area. So we'll get into in a little bit some of what Trinity calls centers of excellence, which are sort of more specific groups within Trinity that focus on certain types of projects and functions. And associates are either able to specialize if they want to, or kind of remain working kind of more broadly on a wider array of projects. And then finally, the work environment. So if we were in the office, we have a really great office in Waltham that has a ping pong table, shuffleboard, we have happy hours, snacks, all different types of amenities, cold brew. Fortunately, we don't have that at the moment, but hopefully soon once we return from COVID. And a flexible working schedule. So even prior to COVID, employees had the opportunity to work from home 1 day a week, which was nice to give you that flexibility. If there was something you needed to be home for. And so that was really great. So looking a little bit more closely at the different types of projects that Trinity focuses on. So at the sort of core of this circle here, you have some of the different groups that are in Trinity. So first, the strategic advisory and consulting group. So that Brianna and I are both part of that group. We were sort of known as the generalist group. So like I was speaking to on the prior slide, new associates can either specialize or they can remain in sort of this broader group that works across different projects at Trinity. So that's the strategic advisory group. And then there's several other more specific groups. So listed here, commercial analytics, our TGAS division, which specializes in life science benchmarking, real world evidence, which specializes in leveraging things like claims data or electronic data to answer client questions, primary market research, which does qualitative and quantitative research across all different types of healthcare stakeholders to answer client questions. So those are some of the core groups at Trinity, and we all really work together a lot of the time to answer any of our clients' questions. And then in the outer circle here, you see some of the high-level project types that Trinity is often working on. And these range from sort of more quantitative, like Excel-based projects like doing revenue forecasting for clients, to more sort of high-level strategic projects like a corporate strategy project, new product strategy where a client may be looking to trying to bring a new drug to the market, and they want us to advise them on which they might have a list that they're choosing from, and they want to know which makes the most sense to bring to the market right now, things like that. Different types of business development strategy and support, so advising clients on licensing and acquisitions. We do drug pricing and reimbursement, health economics and outcomes research. So really across the product life cycle for a commercial product, Trinity is kind of there along the way from first planning out how they want to pursue clinical development all the way through a launch product and doing lifecycle management to make sure that the clients are still sort of maximizing their revenue opportunity for a product. And Trinity sort of slots into the whole continuum. On the next slide, give a little more, I guess, context to that. So to sort of put it into more real life, so you can think about what you would actually do at Trinity. So here's some project examples of the types of projects that Trinity does. So for example, the first one here, working with a leading biotech client, they were trying to find out what the future revenue of a product they were working on would be and optimize their sales trajectory. So really trying to figure out a client who had a new product in development, and they were trying to get a sense of how much this product was worth, what their revenue opportunity would be for this product. So the project here was a worldwide forecast and market assessment. So Trinity did a short-term financial forecast and a 10-year strategic plan so that the client had a better understanding of what they could expect in terms of revenue, and looking out to 10 years what this product was going to do for the company. And then moving down, so a licensing and acquisition that a large cap pharma was trying to do, which was difficult because of inconsistent and unreliable market assessments. So the client was looking to answer some questions around how many patients there were in this market and what they could expect in terms of their product's utilization in this market. So Trinity did a detailed epidemiological and treatment model across therapeutic areas. So looking specifically at cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and allergic rhinitis. So, and telling the client how many patients there were for these different indications, and then doing a market assessment to understand who the competitors were, and based on their product's profile, how many patients their product might expect to be used in. And then moving down to the third one here, so a large cap pharma acquisition for a leading cancer franchise, and the buyer didn't have experience in the oncology therapeutic area. So they were looking for Trinity to tell them, you know, what the big success factors were for oncology companies and oncology products, and identify gaps in the product pipeline and recommend, if the buyer went through with this acquisition, how could they best integrate this company into their current portfolio in order to maximize growth and revenue opportunity for the company. And then finally, with the last example here, so there was a client came to us looking for a partner for their lead product that was in a phase 3 trial. So they were looking for an industry partner that could use their commercialization experience to make sure that the product had a successful launch and was best positioned in the market to maximize revenue opportunity. So Trinity conducted a product forecast and made a commercialization strategy that the client could use in licensing negotiations to make sure that they get the best partnership opportunity for their product that they could. So these project examples are just meant to sort of walk through, you know, some of the projects that you might expect to see at Trinity, give you a better sense of kind of what the objectives of some of the projects we do and what the key business questions for our clients are. Looking at our business, so as you just saw on the prior slide, Trinity works pretty exclusively with life sciences companies. Majority of our company is made up, or of our business, over 50% is made up of big biopharma. So your companies like the top 10 pharma companies that you might expect. And then followed by small biopharma, mid-sized biopharma, and then a bit of medical device and diagnostics. And then a small amount of other there, including some pro bono work that Trinity does. So each year we do pro bono projects with nonprofits that can sort of leverage our consultants to help there. And then on the right, looking at our growth over the last 10 years or so. So you can see a lot of growth since 2008 when we started about 50 employees. I started in 2018 and we were just under 200 employees. And as you can see now in 2020, just under 400 employees right now. So really a lot of growth at Trinity recently, which is really exciting. And to give you a sense of what the Trinity employees are doing following their time at Trinity. So, you know, we know that not everybody is going to stay at Trinity for their entire career. So you can see here, over 50% leave to pursue further education. So medical school and business school are really popular, as well as master's or PhD program. And in terms of people not going to school, the most common career trajectory is to go into industry at a life sciences company, like a pharma or biotech. So over 50% of our management and leadership team began their careers at Trinity's entry-level associates. So that homegrown talent is something that Trinity really emphasizes. But the former staff do often pursue these other avenues. And looking at some of the top MBA programs that Trinity employees go to, we have employees at Harvard, Tuck, Sloan, Wharton right now. So a lot of opportunity from a Trinity start. And next, looking at career development. So an entry-level employee will start at Trinity as an associate consultant and then progress to consultant and then senior consultant. So those 3 roles are considered project staff, with senior consultants sort of beginning to mentor junior employees and start to manage work streams before you move to the management team, which is made up of our engagement managers and associate principals. So our management team are our project managers. So they're typically the day-to-day client contacts. They handle they are the people managers of the staff, and they handle sort of the day-to-day project management and management of the staff employees. And finally, our leadership team, which is principals and partners, make up what we call flying covers on projects. So they typically have the closest relationships with the clients. They are really focused on selling work and making sure that Trinity's business and pipeline stay strong. And they're, of course, always there to play an advisory role on projects, make sure things are moving in the right direction, and are always there to answer any questions that the project teams have. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brianna to walk us through some more slides here.
Great, thanks, Matt. We're going to start with talking a little bit about how the strategic advisory group is set up at Trinity. So we have something called the pod system, and I found that in my 2 years at Trinity, I've always felt very supported, and I felt that there's just so much communication between the junior staff and then the managers and the leadership team. And I think that the pod system is definitely something that helps with that, because we're set up in groups of people that do a lot of their project work together, and you have as you can see on the screen, the pod manager, a few pod managers who have a few staff underneath them, and then a few managers together make up a megapod. And every 2 weeks, we have megapod meetings where we talk about company updates, we talk about new projects that are coming in. So I really like that, because if there's a project I hear about that I think is cool, I can tell my manager and she can help me get staffed on that. And then on the off weeks, we have mini pod meetings, which is just my manager with the other people, the few other people that she manages as well. It really helps you feel like you have a home base, and the communication all the way from the top of the CEO and the leadership team and the partners kind of can trickle down all the way through the junior staff. So it's really helped all of the communication kind of feel like, the communication throughout the company. Want to go to the next view, thanks. And in terms of trainings, I know Matt touched on this a little bit, but to do a little bit of a deeper dive, one of the other great things that I love about Trinity is that we have a really in-depth and robust training curriculum. So your first few weeks to months when you start, we have a new hire training that goes through not only information about Trinity and our business model, but also training on the life sciences, training on the different types of projects that we do, and learning different tools and tactics. So we have an Excel boot camp, we have building a forecast and model trainings. We also have some PowerPoint and slide development trainings as well. So I found that even if you don't come into Trinity knowing all of these skills perfectly, that new hire training really helps you get up to speed early, and it's run by all of the juniors and manager staff at Trinity. So it also has helped me this year meet a lot of the newer people because it's run by the employees. And training kind of culminates in this project synthesis, which is when we have the new hires, we assign them a few different, we split them into groups and we assign them a few different fake projects, and they're given an indication, they have to do research on it, and they eventually have to build a forecast and have a deliverable as a team in front of a lot of people at the company. So that's always really fun for them, and it's enjoyable for the whole company just to meet all of the new hires and ask questions, and it's a really good experience. Great. So in terms of the culture of Trinity, we kind of have 5 pillars that describe our culture. So our internal training, which I discussed earlier, as well as not only the new hire training, but the trainings that are given to managers and leadership kind of over the course of your career at Trinity. And then in terms of recognition, we have a shout outs teams channel that people are getting shout outs about good work that they've done on projects all the time. We also have some employee nominated awards. So last week we just had our virtual outing, which I'll explain on the next slide what our annual outing is. But there were a few individuals and a few project teams that won nominated awards that that happened last week, which was really fun. And then there's also our professional development, which is kind of similar to our internal training, our corporate social responsibility, which I'll also talk about later with volunteer events and drives both inside the office and outside, which I guess is more common now. And then there's also some employee-driven strategic initiatives as well. So this slide is slightly similar to what Matt walked through earlier with the 4 quadrants, but starting on the left-hand side, the benefits and perks of Trinity are one of the great things about the organization. And I know Matt mentioned the work from home flexibility that we had even before COVID. And we had our summer Fridays, which I think everyone really appreciated, just being able to get out of work early on Fridays during the summer and enjoying the weather. The sabbatical that you after 3 years of tenure, you're able to take, I think, 3 or 4 months off. And I've had managers or other people that I know at Trinity that have done it, and it's really valuable experience. Moving down, there's the employee-driven groups, which I will also talk about a little bit later, but there's a grassroots organization started by some of the junior staff called Live It. We have a Trinity Gives Back, as well as our Trinity Perspectives groups that include our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And then on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, we have some of the professional development training and mentorship that we discussed, as well as just having some client presenting exposure early on in your career and being able to participate in different white paper development. We have published quite a few white papers over the course of my experience at Trinity, and I have friends that have gotten involved with that because that's something they're interested in. And then finally, the events. So the company outing and the annual holiday party, I think, are 2 of my favorite things that we have at Trinity. And our outing is a 2-day event that we've had in New Hampshire the past 2 years, and we get to do a lot of brainstorming and breakout groups, just talking with a bunch of different people at the company. And you can also choose a fun activity. So I played golf last year, which was really fun. It was one of my first times, but it went pretty well. And then we have monthly meetings as a whole company called Tea and Learns, just to communicate what's happening with the company, if there's any major updates. And then usually we'll have some office happy hours during non-COVID times every few weeks. And to talk a little bit more about Trinity Gives Back, which is kind of what we call our corporate social responsibility initiatives. We partner with a few different nonprofits. So there's Life Science Cares, as well as the Cycle for Survival Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And with Life Science Cares, they usually have a few different events a year, and you can go and volunteer and raise money. So there's been like a mini golf event that we've done usually every year, and some of the other employee-led programs kind of stemmed out of that. And another event that we do every year is the Cycle for Survival. So our the Trinity office all kind of raises money and reaches out for Memorial Sloan Kettering. And then I think it's in March every year, we all will do this. It's a biking event. So it's like a spin class, but it's super fun. And it was at Equinox in Seaport this year. And we raised a lot of money for cancer, and it was just something really fun to do with our coworkers. And finally, something that I actually am doing again this year is volunteering at a program called Citizen Schools. And we typically will teach an after-school class to a bunch of, I think, middle schoolers or elementary schoolers. And they're in a suburb town of Boston. And typically we'll teach a class that we call Life is a Lab. We will basically do different experiments with them and then kind of try to explain the science, but it's really just a fun way to kind of give back to the community and also spend time with the coworkers. Great. And this is an overview slide about our Trinity Perspectives groups. So we have 3 main groups, and the purpose of these groups are really just to embrace Trinity's diversity so we can better understand each other and also leverage these differences to work more effectively. But we have our cultural diversity group. We have a gender perspectives group, sometimes known as the HBA. And then we have our LGBTQIA plus and allies group. And if maybe we can go to the next slide where we have a little bit more information of what we've been doing with these different perspectives groups. Great. So to start with our cultural diversity group, there's been a few initiatives that have happened, especially in recent months. And we had a civics duty challenge where the company helped to coordinate and raise over $30,000 for a few different organizations. We have a DEI task force that helps kind of lead the conversations that we have with executive committee, including our board. And we've also been increasing diversity in our recruiting. So we're adding a lot more schools this year. And we have certain target lists and driving these other DEI initiatives. And in the, I think, past month, we've had 2 speakers come. So we've had someone named Robin Steinberg, who's the CEO of the Bail Project. And it's basically a national revolving bail fund that provides free bail assistance to low-income individuals until they're legally presumed, who are legally presumed innocent. And so that was really interesting. And then just last week, we had someone named Risha Grant, who's an award-winning diversity consulting and communications firm, speak to us. So I think that those initiatives have also been spearheaded by the Cultural Perspectives group as well. And the Gender Perspectives group has a pay equity study that they do every year, kind of analyzing everyone at the company based on their position and seeing how people are getting paid. So that's something that's really been helpful, and the results have been really promising. Trinity pays everyone fairly. So that has been great to know. And we've recently been having these things called Fireside Chats. So some of the female partners are having just these small group chats about how they started their path at Trinity, as well as just helping to foster conversations between the junior staff and some of the female partners that are pretty high up at Trinity. And then finally, for the LGBTQ plus and allies group, we, over Pride Month, had an event that was trivia and a musically oriented trivia that I think over 100 people participated in from the company, which was really fun. Yeah, so it was greater than a third of the company. So yeah, and there were 27 different teams, and that was something that was really fun as well. And then there's also other plans for that.
Thank you, Brianna. So I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about what it has been like working at Trinity in the COVID environment. So I'm sure that I, can speak for everyone here that, we have all been affected by COVID in some shape or form, whether it be, personally or professionally. And, Trinity is very, very grateful that from a business health standpoint, we have been largely unaffected by COVID. Our client and project work continues to increase, and as a result, we are continuing to hire to support all of our clients' needs. So, we're very lucky to have had no layoffs, and right now we are projecting to hit a new record number of hires for 2020, and we foresee that 2021 will be no different. So just looking at this from a cultural perspective, so we have been working from home, so fully remotely since the middle of March, and we really don't have any concrete plans to return to the office until, right now we're targeting, early next year, but we're very much so just kind of playing it by ear at this point. Our CEO, Dave, actually said a couple weeks ago in one of our company meetings that we want to be innovators in almost everything, as a company, but we can leave returning to the office during the pandemic to the experts. So kind of going hand in hand with this, we have continued to interview and onboard new staff completely remotely. A little bit over a month ago now, in early August, we onboarded a large group of 30 plus campus hires from our campus recruiting last year. And they have started, completely remotely, so all over the US. And it's certainly not the same as in person, but we're doing the best we can. So I know that Brianna and Matt already touched a little bit on kind of what we've been doing for morale, but just a couple of more things here. So we've had some company-wide opt-in meetings. So every month now, it used to be kind of more often, but now it's every month we get business updates from our executive committee. So we hear, updates on how different branches of the business are doing. We've had some guest speakers, and one of my personal favorites, we especially in the beginning of COVID, we had a pet showcase, or a couple of different pet showcases. It was just a company-wide meeting where anyone could join and show off their dogs or cats or hamsters or bunnies, just for everyone else to get a good laugh. And last but certainly not least, we have taken a lot of time and a lot of resources to expand and improve on our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts as well. Okay, and then a couple of more details specific to recruiting that we wanted to touch base on. So, of course, tonight is our information session with you all, and there's actually a tight turnaround in terms of when applications and resumes are due. We do understand that it's a little bit on the early side for Northeastern recruiting. I know that you all haven't, been back in class for too long, but applications are actually due on Wednesday by the end of the day, so that's September 23rd. And the way that you can apply is through NU Works, so through the Simplicity platform. So we have both of our full-time positions that we are recruiting for posted there. So the associate consultant role, which is for undergraduate and master's students, and then the senior consultant role, which is for PhD or MBA students. So you do need to apply through NU Works, and then there's actually a link in those job descriptions that brings you to our website as well. So you will need to apply in both places. And then typically what the interview process will look like, you'll have two main rounds of interviews. The first round and the final rounds, they look very similar. They will be two 45-minute back-to-back interviews. So those will include both behavioral and some more critical thinking or case-based questions. And that is about it for content that we have for all of you. But now, we still have about 15 minutes left. So I would love to kind of open things up for questions. I do have one question in the chat that I'd love to kind of start off with. But after that, would love people to feel free to come off mute, hop in with any questions about our project work, our clients, anything recruiting related. We can definitely try to answer. So the first question, I think, can be answered by Matt or Brianna. So the question is, can you talk a little bit more about how the multi-project staffing structure looks like for you? Wanted to get a sense of what the actual workload and types of projects are that you're working on.
Sure. I can take it first, and then Brianna, feel free to jump in. So I personally love the multi-staffing project model for the reasons that were on the slide, just in terms of the exposure to different clients and project types you get. Typically, when you start out as an associate, you're not thrown like a million things at once. So when you first start out, you'll be single staffed for a bit when you're kind of getting your feet under you, and then you'll slowly ramp up to 2 projects. And then as you progress to like the senior consultant position, that may go up to 3 or even 4, but your responsibilities on the projects also change. So the idea is that when you're an associate, you're typically going to be staffed on 2 projects, and you're really sort of in the weeds doing the detailed research for those projects. And then as you kind of progress at Trinity, and you slowly start to take on like more of a mentorship role, more of a management role within your projects, you kind of are given the professional development opportunity to start to be slowly like ease into an advisor role, which opens up more of your time and you get exposure to even more projects. And I think at the start of your time at Trinity, I think the goal for most associates is really to get exposure to as many different projects as you can, just so that you are learning as much as you can. And if you do find that you are really enjoying one specific project type, you can even start to specialize in that area. So to start, you're really looking for as much exposure as possible. And then as you start to learn more about what you're interested in, you can have those conversations with your manager around what you want to learn more about. If there's a certain indication or therapeutic area you want to learn more about, those are things you can talk to your manager about and get more exposure to. And like workload wise, I think the great part of the pod structure that Brianna walked you guys through is, although it's multi-staff, so you're on 2 projects, typically both project managers are going to be in your same pod. And the great part of that is that they meet every week to talk about staffing. They have a very good idea of what projects you're on, how busy you are, if you have a big deliverable coming up next week. So it kind of keeps the communication really tight so that everyone in your group is fully aware of what everyone else is doing. And if your project really needs help, they can pull somebody in who maybe is having a lighter week. So although you'll be on more than one project, I think in general, everyone's really aware of the work you're doing, and everyone tries really hard to make sure that it stays under control. Yeah, Brianna, anything else?
I don't think I would have anything else to add, but I think when I was interviewing for different places, I kind of was like, oh, multi-staffing one project, not really thinking that there would be a difference, but especially after having worked at Trinity for 2 years and other friends that I have that worked at other firms that were on one project at a time, I definitely feel very lucky for our staffing model. Also, just to be honest, you're not always going to love every single project that you're staffed on. And that's rarely happened to me at Trinity, but it sometimes happens. And I found that because I'm on multiple projects, not that I'm on one terrible project that just drags on, which has happened to other friends I've had at other companies, but more so I have maybe one project that's a little bit more challenging, but then another project that I like a little bit more, and then it quickly ends and I get a new one. So I definitely like the multi-project staffing model.
Awesome. So we have a couple more questions here in the chat. So one of them was about how to, prepare for case interviews. So I guess I just want to comment on this a little bit. So we do have a couple of practice cases on our website. I dropped the link into the chat here, so definitely encourage everyone to take a look at those. But I also wanted to chat a little bit about, so, you know, this past year, we have actually made some adjustments to, you know, what a case interview really means. And we have, as a company, transitioned a little bit away from, you know, we're not looking to test our candidates on, you know, are they able to, you know, do a case interview or perform well on a case interview because of the specific framework that they're using or the, you know, technical pieces of a case interview. It's more so focused on your ability to think critically, think strategically, ask good questions, you know, work with your interviewer to, you know, kind of work through any, you know, issues or problems that you have. So, you know, definitely encourage folks to use our practice cases, but more so think of it as an opportunity to, you know, work through, you know, any type of questions and really just show how you can think critically. So I don't know, Matt or Brianna, if you want to, you know, add in anything about case interviews, but.
Yeah, I think the practice cases that Riley mentioned that you dropped the link to are really helpful. If you have, I'd recommend if you have friends that are, you know, maybe if there's multiple people in this webinar right now that are interested in applying, you know, link up and talk about it together, do a practice together. I think when I was practicing for case interviews, the most beneficial thing I found was to do a real one with another person. So I would definitely recommend trying to set that up, but take a look at what Riley sent. That's probably one of your best resources.
I can see the other questions in the chat, so I might actually read one. I feel like, Matt, you might have a good answer to this. Why did you choose a life science consulting over other science related careers, clinical health care, traditional biotech, or research?
I'm a great person to answer this question.
I know.
So I mentioned at the start, I graduated from Bouvet. I was a health science major. I was pre-med when I first started at Northeastern. And then through different classes, co-ops, it's the different opportunities from Northeastern started to sort of turn away from wanting to pursue medical school. I'm sure there's other people in this group that maybe are in a similar place that I was. So while I was in school, chose to not pursue a clinical career, not take the med school route. And I actually did my final co-op at a biotech in Cambridge, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals. So I worked there as my third co-op in like a strategic finance group doing investment planning and like long range forecast planning. And actually did that, accepted an offer to stay there after graduation, worked there for about a year following graduation. And then, so most people come into Trinity, or most of our associates come into Trinity right from undergrad. I was actually a little unique. I came in about a year after I finished undergrad. I think the reason that I left Alnylam to come to life sciences consulting, and more specifically Trinity, was being in-house in industry. I just realized that there was a lot going on around me that I really wanted to learn about. And I had really great mentors at Alnylam who I would talk to about the types of things that I wanted to learn about. And basically to get the experiences and to build the sort of hard skills that I wanted to so early on in my career, it seemed they really pushed me towards consulting, and it seemed like consulting was the best place to really learn a lot as quickly as possible, which, you know, Trinity has done a great job at giving me tons of opportunities to work across, at this point, probably close to 50 different clients, tons of different project types. And although I did really like was interested in my job at Alnylam, it just, from being in one sort of siloed position, I was never going to personally get the types of learning experiences that I wanted early on in my career that consulting was able to offer really quickly. Cool.
I can continue reading the questions in the chat. What differentiates Trinity from other smaller firms or the big three? I can take this one. I think specifically Trinity is just a life sciences company. So you really do have to have the passion for life sciences because that's all we do. I think most other consulting firms, you can get staffed on some life sciences or pharma or biotech projects, but there also are chances that you get staffed on a whole host of other things. So that's really the reason why I think we all chose Trinity. And I think Trinity is the people kind of differentiates it, and just as well as I think having that smaller company feel, but is still growing. So there's a lot of opportunities that I think that I'm getting at Trinity compared to some of my other friends that are maybe at other similar firms that they don't have. So for example, I was supposed to transfer to our Germany office in April, but it did get pushed back because of coronavirus. But that was something that once we opened our office in Munich, the junior staff kind of pushed for, we want an opportunity to maybe try going there. I also studied abroad in college, so it was something that I really wanted to do. So we have an application process, and hopefully in early 2021 is my new date, and I'll be able to do that. I don't know if you have any follow-up answers, Matt.
Yeah, I think as far as versus like the big three or some of the bigger consulting firms, I think Brianna hit it well. There's something about being in a firm, from someone who's interested in the life sciences personally, there's something about being in a firm where every single person at the company, from the associate to the CEO, is 100% focused and dedicated to the life sciences. I think it really enables like really great expertise in the company, really great mentorship. And so that I think is the biggest advantage of a firm like Trinity versus some of the bigger firms. And as far as the other similar smaller firms, I think, I'm biased obviously, but I think Trinity's culture is great. The people are great. COVID has made me realize like how much I miss my coworkers and genuinely enjoy spending time with them. So that's, I think, the biggest differentiator for me.
Great. And I think we have one more question and probably time for just one more. Following up on Brianna's comment, this is a question for everyone. How do you work together with your team or manager to solve the challenges when you get staffed on a project that is dragging or you don't have the exact answers that the client is looking for?
They're going to take it?
Yeah, go ahead. It sounds like an interview question.
So I would say, I'll tackle the last part first. I would say I've never been on a project at Trinity where we're not able to like get to the client. I mean, maybe we don't always give a client the answer that they want, because we'll give them, an honest assessment of the market or of their product's opportunity. So, it might not be the answer that they want. But I've never been on a project where we haven't been able to get to an answer. I think, again, going back to the great part about everyone being dedicated to the life sciences is, there's people at the firm that have been doing this for 20 plus years. There's not much that someone hasn't come across before. So I think we're always able to get to a good answer. As far as working on a project that is like challenging, it's just a continual conversation with your manager and the project team to make sure that you're pushing it along as best you can. Sometimes timelines get stretched out. A client might be just a particularly challenging client. But it's important to like keep your other project teams informed. If you're on one project that is really, you're going to have a really bad week because it's just a tough time on that project. You just need to be transparent with your other project teams. And again, it goes back to the pod structure being so great because people tend to be informed when that's happening, and it's just another way for support.
All right. Thank you both. So I think our last concluding question can be, how can everyone here get in touch with each of you?
Yes. So Here is contact info for everybody that was on the webinar today. I don't know if anyone can screenshot this or write it down or whatever you need to do. But feel free to shoot any of us an email or a LinkedIn message or whatever you need.
Well, thank you both again, and thank you to Riley. I know she had to hop off. And thank you to everyone for attending. I hope you all learned a little bit about Trinity and about healthcare consulting in general, because I know I did. So again, like I said at the beginning, our first digital health speaker event is going to be on Thursday from 6 to 7. We're going to be focusing in on wearable technology, and we have some great speakers coming in, one of them being from Ember Labs, and we have a professor from Northeastern who actually used to work at Fitbit, and we also have someone from Pavlok. So it's going to be super interesting, and yeah, follow us on our social medias to kind of learn more about the events that we're going to be hosting this semester, because we're taking a more digital health perspective on everything. And I'll put the link to join our newsletter in the description. If you missed anything from today's event, we'll definitely be sending out a newsletter next Monday. So we usually send them out on Mondays, and everything from today will kind of be concisely put in there. So, and if you have any questions, feel free to email us, DM us on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, and we'll respond as soon as we can. But yeah, thank you so much everyone again for coming. I hope you have a great week.